Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
Hope everyone had a good start to their week. Looks like Ellie's living her best life. Wave to us, Ellie. She's like, why are you calling me out, Aunt Holly? Yeah, so super excited. I'm laughing. So my friend Liz from Junior League has been on a lot of these happy hours, and we've met each other because she served in various leadership capacities. Some of you know her from the same place, and others of you have never had the opportunity to meet her other than these virtual happy hours. I was laughing because I work from home all of the time and feel like most of the time I have it pretty much together. And this morning, not so much. And so I love the realness that we can bring our struggles to these happy hours and ask questions and find out some pro tips so that we can all get better. And what I like about Liz's background is she's been in a big company in a corporate environment and then works from home, sometimes still in the office, sometimes still working from home, and manages being a mommy and a volunteer. So understands whatever facet that we're coming to this conversation with. She completely relates and can give all of us some tactical tools to move forward. So if I guess there's only one of you that's never been on one of these before, feel free to ask questions, speak up, write in the chat box. Like, this is not a formal presentation. This is just an opportunity to have some connection, but also get some value too. So Liz, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you. And speaking of not a formal presentation, just because this is how I think I actually put together a PowerPoint, also because it's about work. So, you know, it just made sense for me. But yeah, thanks. Thanks for doing this. So I've been in educational publishing for about 15 years and software. And so because of that, I work with people all over. Sometimes I'm the person who's all over. But for a while I thought, okay, I'm going to do this while having my daughter at home full time, and very quickly realized that I felt like a terrible mom and I felt like a terrible employee all at the same time. I wasn't doing either of them well. And so I really, she's almost 10. So this was, almost 10 years ago. And so really started looking into a lot of workplace efficiency and all that good stuff, and a lot of work from home. And then I should just say up front that I've been really, really lucky to have had a lot of bosses and worked for a lot of people who have been really, really open to working from home, open to me saying, hey, I'd like to kick off this side project to figure out how to make your meeting that you run. Can we make this more efficient? Because it's an hour, and by the half hour point, I'm really dragging. And, and I've worked with a lot of people who have been really, really open to having those conversations. I have way too many books on workplace efficiency and listen to all the podcasts and all that good stuff. So I think this is something that I'm a little bit nerdy over. So quick thumbs up or down, or drinks up or down. Do y'all want to see a PowerPoint? Okay. All right. So I'll just share it.
If you went to the trouble to do it, we definitely want to see it.
I love a PowerPoint. I love a PowerPoint.
It is. This talk is about workplace. So, okay. Here we go. All right. So, whoops, and then it's not forwarding. There we go. So also, in addition to having had great managers and companies, I've also had really awesome teams that have worked for me, that have been really open to me saying, okay, we're going to guinea pig this. We're going to pilot this. And so a lot of these things are things that I would have said to them when they were starting to work from home. But some of them, are certainly changing because of COVID. And so now a lot of my friends who haven't worked from home are basically saying the same things that I said when I first started trying to do all the things all the time. And so, but they don't have the luxury of having time to get over that like I did, and having happy hours like this. And so, so hopefully this is, I can share a little bit of that. So one of the things that, with a little bit of an HR hat on, if you are feeling like you have to do your 9 to 5 in a 9 to 5, I don't know a single person who is doing that right now very well. And so all the employers I've talked to and all of my friends' employers have actually all been pretty open to not working normal hours. And so, so for me, what this looks like is about a third of my time is actually doing things like reviewing spreadsheets, diving into data, really sitting down and like, chewing on a problem. That doesn't have to be in this normal window. And so in my house, my husband and I sat down and took out both of our work schedules and said, okay, you know what, on Monday afternoons, I have back-to-back meetings. On Tuesday mornings, I have one meeting, but then most of my meetings are actually Tuesday afternoon. So I'm going to talk to the person that I meet with on Tuesday mornings or the group that I meet with and see if we can bump this around a little or see if we can record it. And I send in my questions ahead of time so that I can basically block whole pieces of time that I'm not working. Now, this is important for me because I'm a parent and I have 2 little kids and who are not in school. We have grandparents who live in the area, but we are distancing from them as well for their protection and ours. And so right now it's 4 people in my house and they're the only people we see. So we've been really, my husband and I have been really proactive about saying, okay, this is your window. This is my window. That doesn't mean it has to be all meetings during that time, but it does, but that is your time or this is my time. And as much as possible, we try to hold that sacred for the other person. If you have, I know that's, I'll recognize my privilege on that and say that, having another parent in the house is something that not everyone has. But that is truly been a lifesaver for me. Also, regardless of whether you have kids at home or not, work from home is not work all the time. And so the friends of mine who don't have kids and who are just starting to work from home, this is their number one thing is I just work all the time now. I don't know how to shut it off. You are still, this is not your life. This is still your job. And so set those boundaries, and whether you are physically setting your distance or not, leave work at work. All right, so now you've got a new crazy schedule because you just blocked out your Tuesday afternoons and maybe your Wednesday mornings or something. And so where this goes south real fast is if you're not helping people understand your expectations. Now, they probably all have situations like this too. Or at least they wish they did, and they wish they had thought of this and we were actually blocking out their calendars is the sense that I'm getting from a lot of colleagues. So do everything you can to help set those expectations for the people around you. For me, in my workplace, we actually use Google Calendars, and we purposely set the visibility so anyone at my work can see my schedule. Now, that doesn't mean they can see all the details, but they can at least see when I'm blocked out or not. So you can set that temporarily. If you want to do that. If you just have a team that you need to work with on a regular basis, maybe it's worth sharing, setting up a Google Calendar that you all contribute to during this weird time period, but basically making it clear when you're available and when you're not. I updated my email signature. So now every time I send an email, there's a little red block on the bottom that says when I'm available. And then the really, really important thing, stick to that unavailability. If you tell people that you're not available on Tuesday afternoons, but then you're constantly responding to people's emails, they're not taking that time seriously. And someday you're going to need that, because if you didn't need it, then don't set it. So just stick on your unavailability. All right. So you've got your days and you've got your weird blocks of time or whatever else it is. So then none of these are specific to COVID. These are specific to workplace efficiency. And when you are working from home, especially when you have little kids, and especially when you have all the distractions of the things happening around you, it is really important that you use the time that you have really, really well. So start by mapping your day. I actually do this pretty much the first thing I do during the day. This is what mine looks like. I use a paper tracker. I have an actual calendar that, has my meetings, but this is what I'm going to get done during the day. And so for me, I sit here, you can find a million of these, you can create these, but these are all over the internet. But so I sit there and I say, okay, this is a meeting. And so I block out this time. I'm not doing anything else during this time. This is when I'm on kid duty. This is when I'm going to work out or whatever else, and I block it. I only use this for my work time. I don't use it for personal time. I guess you could, I don't. But now that my work and personal time has gotten a little longer to accommodate working the same number of hours, but in a more expanded time slot, basically I'm mapping more. But then make sure that when you go in here that you set your couple top priorities and that you're actually setting time for them. Because otherwise you get to the end of that day and you haven't done them. And this is where that, oh, I guess I better keep working, or it's 10 o'clock at night, I just put my kids down, I guess I better get back to it. This is keep your work at work, set reasonable boundaries and stick to them. So make sure that in addition to scheduling your time, that you also schedule in some time for emails. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But email should not be, you shouldn't constantly have email open because it's a distractor. And a lot of the stuff that happens on email is actually not the hot dumpster fire that you need to be attending to right this second. Most of it will get resolved if you just give it a little bit of time. There's a saying about eat your frog first. Has anyone heard that saying? Like, if the thing you have to do is eat a frog, then make that the first thing you do, or something like that. It's attributed to Mark Twain, but then I actually looked up and apparently it wasn't him that said it. But basically it's that the thing that you need to get done, the thing that maybe you're procrastinating on, give that top billing and schedule that for yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean, especially in this time of COVID, if you have kids at home, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the first thing of the day. It means that it's the most important thing that you're scheduling, and make sure that you are scheduling so that it gets priority. And by that, I mean, if you start working at 8 in the morning, but also that's the time that your kid is sometimes up and sometimes not up, maybe that's actually not a good time for you to be able to really say, this is a focus time for me. So be realistic with what those focus times can be. And schedule your frog eating for when you realistically are going to have that time, but prioritize it. Something else, this next one is actually something that I need to remind myself to do more often. When you go to a meeting, when you're on a Zoom and you see someone else, they're sharing their screen and they have, 40 tabs open at the top, or maybe you do. I do a lot of times. Don't do that because every time you have to, and I do this myself, this is a don't do that to me. When you have to stop and look around for the thing that you needed, it takes 2 to 3 minutes every time you get distracted to actually refocus on the thing you need to do. And that is not my data. That's like actual data that came from someone. That is assuming that you get right back onto your task. It takes you 2 or 3 minutes once you are back in that task to be as focused as you were when you first were interrupted. And so if you have to stop and navigate around to all these tabs across your window, you're not, you're allowing that distraction to take longer. It's taking you longer. It's less efficient. And probably what you should have just done in the first place was get that task done, get it knocked out and close your tabs. Easier said than done. I just said that, I often have, it's often me with the bar across, but when you think about it, just give yourself a little shutdown. Another important thing, especially when you are, when you know that you have to get right back to it, you have to maximize the time that you have. Make sure that when you wrap up for the day, that you're setting your couple priorities for the next day, if you can. Like, this is a thing I didn't get done today, that's the highest priority, or whatever else. Move over those priority lists from today that you didn't get done and move them into tomorrow, and schedule what needs to happen first thing the next day. All right. So I just talked about mapping my day, my work day, but this is the thing that I have learned during COVID, is that I really need to map out my kids' days too. And actually kind of my whole family, that includes my husband. Again, every time you get distracted, it takes us a couple minutes once you're refocused, but it also takes a huge amount of mental energy to constantly respond to this. And this is mental energy that I don't know about you, but I could use all of mine that I can save right now. And if you've never been a planner before, or if you've been a super planner before, step up your game. Whatever it is, step it up, and it will save you on some of the on some of that mental health, mental energy. So I think this is probably going to look a little bit different for everybody. But what works for me is I do this. As you can tell, I like paper. I like to print. I like to write. I like the tactileness of writing. There's actually a piece of paper that's inside like a wipe-off sleeve. I have like a set of 30 that I ordered from Amazon. But basically, it's a printed schedule that we stick to more or less on most days. It's like, okay, at this time, this is going to be when we get up and have breakfast and do like the started day hygiene, which, believe it or not, I actually have to remind my kids of. They are 4 and 9, and I have to remind them that no, I know you're not going to school. You still have to brush your teeth. Doing those sorts of things, knowing, it's been really helpful for my kids to be able to know when things are going to happen. It's also a good checkpoint for me, because then when all of a sudden it's my turn to be on kid duty, or maybe it's not, and there's a question, I have an easy answer. It's this. One of the things that we've been doing, or I guess two of the things that we've been doing that make it work for us, is we have the on parent. So this goes to whose window does it fall in? It doesn't mean the kids don't come still ask me questions if it's my window, but as much as possible, my husband and I are trying to really hold it sacred for the other person. So you know what, even if we both have conflicting meetings, or actually maybe especially when we have conflicting meetings, because there have been times and it's like, look, we both have an 11 o'clock, but you know what, this is your window. So if the kids have an emergency, it's you. And, because otherwise, at least for me, maybe this isn't true for you, but at least for me, I have found that I, as the woman in the relationship, as the problem solver, often if it's like, wait, we both have things, okay, I'll figure out how I can find a way to handle this. I know many of my women friends say the same thing. And so what that does then is it deprioritizes my work, and ultimately it makes me really resentful. Even when I haven't been asked to deprioritize, that's just, I hear a problem, I want to solve it. And so this also solves that problem ahead of time by saying, this is the person that you need to go to, kid. Now, not both of my kids read, but one of them does. And so she's pretty good at helping deflect. We also, on this side, have just suggestions of activities. My older daughter has recently started online school again, or for the first time. And so she has actual things that she's supposed to do for school, but it really only takes her about a third of the day if she spreads it out over the 5-day week. And so then, we have, there are things of, okay, here are a couple different choices of what you can do. And then I actually have a basket that this sits in front of that has like, here's all the stuff that you would need to do all these things, so that there is no reason that anyone has to come to me in the middle of the day while I'm focused on other things and trying to really maximize my time, to ask questions about, what should I be doing? I'm so bored. Where is this thing? Can I watch TV now? Is it time to go outside? So it's there. So that's what works for me. All right. So now everything's planned, everything's set. Oh, by the way, we also do something like that for meals, that we don't have to think about it at the end of the day or midday, like, hey, what's for lunch? That's actually like my least favorite. And it's not even that I just roll my eyes. It's possibly like dagger eyes when someone asks me in the middle of the day, like, what's for lunch? And it's written down somewhere. I could just go read it. It's there. In fact, it's probably prepped. Anywho, all right. So Workspace, and this is specific to working from home. Have a space. If you can have an office, if you can have a dedicated space, great. There are so many great articles online about how to work from home, efficiency strategies. For a lot of people right now, that's not a reality because you didn't choose this. You were thrown into this at the last minute, and then all the stores were closed. So you couldn't actually go and like buy the things that you needed to make your workspace better for you. So, so having that dedicated space, is really important. There have been a number of studies that have talked about how having a second monitor really, really increases your efficiency. So much so that actually my current employer, back when it was when the company was just a startup and it was really struggling, that was one of the things that they prioritized spending on, was getting everyone at least a second monitor, if not a third, because it really increases what you can do so much. So actually I can see my eyes tracking, and I have the Zoom set up on my extended monitor, but my camera is on my initial. So I really am paying attention. I'm just looking sideways. But it's incredibly helpful for efficiency. And I travel quite a bit for work. And I always notice that on the weeks that I travel, how much harder it is to get anything done, look at any spreadsheet, do anything, because I'm narrowed to my one window. One of the other big keys, if you can't have a set workspace, is wear headphones. Even if they're just little ones like these are from an old phone. It has a microphone. When I have my headphones in, my kids and my husband know that means I'm not in a meeting. Sometimes I wear them even when I'm not in meetings, but it really, I'm in my work zone, and, it's not like they're not still going to come talk to me if there's an emergency or something else. But it's really helpful. I find that also because I'm used to it, even having them in my ears, also like the physical sense of it also kind of puts me in their work zone. All right. So this is maybe the number one thing that I have found for working from home for me and for my teams as they have transitioned to work from home. And that is keeping an interruption tracker for a couple days. So you can find these online, you can make one, you can make a table. But basically what you are tracking is what time of day did it happen and how long. So, 8:55 to 9. Now, of course, you probably don't recognize, you're not going to stop what you're doing, like write it down right at the time. So estimating is great. Who initiated it? Most often when I'm working from home and there's an interruption, it's me who initiated it. It was me going, shit, I need to add something to my HEB curbside list. Or hearing a conversation that someone else is having and meetings get involved, or deciding that, I'm going to go check Facebook or something like that. Those are all interruptions that I bring on myself. So very briefly, what was it? Was this a beneficial thing? Keep in mind, a lot of interruptions are beneficial. This is when someone comes to your desk in the middle of the day because they can't move ahead on a project without you signing off on something or without getting further information. So is it a beneficial thing? And is it urgent? This is a different color for a reason. IMs, Slacks, all of these things that we're using to stay constantly in contact with everybody else. These are interruptions that really, really decrease your productivity and really decrease your efficiency. It doesn't mean they're not important, but they are, you can sit down for your whole 8 hours and get barely anything done because you're responding to communication all day. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing these. In fact, working from home and not having instant message capabilities or something like that is probably a big problem. But you can manage it, and you can figure out ways to work with this that works best for you. So for me, I have found that at the start of most people's day, when I tend to get a barrage of emails and Slacks, or we use Slack and we use GChat, but all that kind of stuff. And so I know that, like, hey, at that time in the morning, if I'm not responding, it's very possible that other people can't do what they need to do. So how about I will schedule myself to do tasks during that time that I really don't need to focus on as much. Maybe they're my 5-minute, 10-minute tasks that I just need to check the box. I need to approve invoices. I need to, respond to email or something like that, so that I am not being interrupted by a barrage of things. Sometimes there are people who just need to be told, you need to solve this on your own. Certainly I've sold that to my kids or my husband. But there are people at work too, especially, people who are maybe younger in an organization and really want a lot of feedback or something like that. And, maybe the solution to that is not to not give them feedback, but to set up frequent, regular check-ins or something so that they're not interrupting you from doing other things, and they have a set time that they know, this is when I ask my questions. She's not going to respond to me outside of this time, or at least she's not going to respond to me quickly. That one of the biggest keys for me is I just don't respond fast. There are certain things that if I know I'm watching for a certain message or whatever else that, because it's really important, that, okay, maybe I'll be on the lookout. But most problems are solved long before I get to them if I space out reading my email by 4 hours. So I schedule email time 3 times a day, about 4 hours apart, for an hour or 30 minutes, depending on my job is a lot of responding to people. And so, that is when I look at email. And a lot of times by that time, there is already a whole thread because someone else jumped on it before I did. So that's their inefficiency, not mine. Okay. Some best practices for remote meetings. So I managed a team for a while that we were all split. And so we actually did a task force on this for how to be not just efficient, but also how to feel like a team when you're used to seeing each other in person, or maybe that's what your comfort zone is, and now you don't get to. So some of this is for efficiency. Some of this is for actually like enjoying the people you work with and having those real relationships. So setting an agenda and socializing it so that people have time to listen, or people have time to read and come up with what their questions might be. That does often mean a more thorough agenda. But keep in mind, there are some people who do not like to react on the spot, or who get really, they may have the best ideas, but they're not the person that in the meeting you can present something to and they can come up with it. They need that time to ruminate. And so when you're in a remote setting, the whole goal here is to minimize the follow-up that's needed. And so, when you're remote, you don't have those chances to just walk around and talk to each other. And so if that person is going to be able to contribute fully, they might need that time to be able to look through things and think about it. And most of those people know who they are. They also, because we as a society value thinking on our feet and being able to respond so quickly, that's also not something that they're likely to have told you, but they know it about themselves, that, that they clam up a little bit in meetings or whatever else. Keep your cameras on. This is how you see each other. It's how you see not just your facial expressions and that sort of thing, but who's not responding, who's not paying attention. If the majority of people aren't paying attention, then it's really easy to be like, ugh, that person just, like they're wasting my time. But you know what? Actually, then you're not getting what you need out of the meeting either. If they were at your meeting because you needed them at your meeting and they're not paying attention, there may be a better way to do this. Because you're still not going to get it if they're not paying attention. Some of the things that I've started doing during COVID, because so many of us, not just me, but so many of us are working kind of weird schedules, which means that maybe some of the meetings that we would have gone to before, we can't always be at, is I've asked, is I'm now recording meetings and then sharing the link just through the meeting invitation or on the calendar. I've asked other people to do the same, because there are just a lot of times now that, maybe even if I am there, there could be that my kid walks in and had an emergency or something else. So this also, I probably should have batched this with the agenda bullet, but having shared real-time notes that you update during the meeting that are available on the screen is really fantastic for making sure that everyone's understanding the same thing. You can also, if you have a team that you can do this with, it's great to take turns being note takers, taking turns being mood watchers. So a couple people who are truly just paying attention to how are other people responding and looking and that kind of thing. Often the meeting facilitator is not the right person to do that. Almost none of the time is the meeting facilitator the right person to do that. The meeting facilitator is also not the right person to take notes, but the meeting facilitator almost always assumes that what they're saying and what their underlying intentions are, that everyone attending the meeting actually got. So it's really helpful for someone to take notes about what they're actually getting out of it, because it could be very different. All right. One of the like panic moments that I've seen a lot of people do is, oh my God, we can't see each other in person anymore. We just need to meet for like 3 hours a day now. Let's take our 30-minute check-ins and let's make them an hour because we have so much more to cover. Actually, I think you should do the opposite, because most people aren't working with fewer distractions. They're working with more. They have more things that are happening outside of this. And so, if you can be more concise, if you have an hour-long meeting and you have an agenda that could be covered in 30 minutes or an hour, like meetings will just naturally expand to take the amount of time allotted, and sometimes more than that. So set your meeting shorter, see if you can get through it, and try to keep yourself on point, which is a good reminder for me to check how long we've been in here. I'm almost at the end and we are right on time. Really important for meetings. Multitasking is just a no. We all like that. We wear that as a badge of honor that we're so good at multitasking. But if you are in a shorter time frame, and then what that really calls for is your full attention for a shorter amount of time, because you no longer have the luxury of following up with people in person. At best you can follow up with them and then they have to respond to you when they're available, or if they're like me, in once every 4 hours, 30 minutes that they give to responding to email. So also in these meetings, remember the goal is to minimize follow-up that's needed. Just be really, really clear about like what needs to happen next, who owns what. I see so many processes that are just like, they start with the verb, take this and do that, download this and do that. Who does that? Who owns that step? And so being really clear on X does this person does that, or this team or whatever. And then it's that team's ownership to actually take it and work out those next, maybe the finer details or whatever. But there you go. Minimizing ambiguity. So finally, all of this efficiency, productivity, planning is still not as strong as these three things that I have seen across the board in some of my meetings with customers, some of my meetings with my bosses and managers, that everyone is having a really rough time with this right now. And so the thing that has worked best, better than socializing that I am now available until 9 a.m. on this day, and then after 3 p.m. on this day, is making sure that I am also empathetic to what other people's struggles are in their times. That I'm really upfront about, I have 2 kids running around in the background, and no one has been pissed off that every once in a while my kid comes in and shows me a piece of art and then walks out. And then this of all times is when good is good enough instead of going for perfect, because there's just so much else to do. And that was it. We got through that whole PowerPoint.
That was awesome. So I'm sure
there were no questions. So now
questions about her pro tips. The one that stood out to me is I actually have email sprints scheduled throughout my day because I get sucked in and I think that my inbox needs to go to less than a certain amount. I loved the way you worded that. There's no one asking questions.
I didn't have any questions, but on my team at work, I'm one of the few people that actually works from home normally a lot. And my boss needed some advice when all this started, and she actually wasn't used to working from home. And you actually just helped me take some notes that I already told her. So I don't want to waste everyone's time by just re-listing some of the things you said, but it just helped me be like, yeah, I feel better now that this is what this was just coming from me, and now somebody else is helping me like say, yeah, this is what, I was telling my boss, like, so if my family starts a chat at 11 a.m., we're doing a senior grocery run, who has an emergency need, I'm going to have to stop work at that moment and talk about supplies because we're in a pandemic. Like, so the humanness was something I had to, not that she needed help with humanness, but anyway, you've made so many great points. It was awesome.
Thanks.
Well, I think a lot of us are going to see pivots in our business in general where more people start to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we've learned a lot from this. So I think this is really helpful from a global perspective, not just in this moment.
I think, maybe it's just a better question. Are there things that you all have found that really work well for you? Because most of these came from first reading it somewhere, like as a suggestion. But then like, this is what has worked well for me or my teams or whatever else. But there are a lot of other really great practices out there, and really great ideas. What would you add to this list?
I would, I think this is so helpful. So I'm actually at my company helping to sort of lead our working from home, working parent initiative. We're a smaller consulting firm, and so this is our first sort of experience around that. We're able to work from home, but I think the one, like, and I'm taking all this back. This is so helpful because we had, I definitely want to get your contact information. I had a survey that went out over the weekend. I was going through some of the results. And I think what folks are sort of talking about, the one thing that we are doing okay right now, but we still got a lot of work to catch up on, is over communicate. We've got some folks that are coming in from really prestigious accounting and consulting backgrounds, and we're kind of the melding of generations around that. With folks that have younger children, and sort of what does that look like with folks. So anyways, just a lot of over communication, I think, is, which I am sometimes irritated by because it's just like constant, but that's been helpful. I think, so, I don't know. But no, I really, really appreciated all of this. This is great. I think also because the further we get into this, we realize this is not just a COVID situation. This is going to be probably part of our new normal.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I love working from home. Even not COVID, I work from home 1 or 2 days a week, and I pick the days that are like my least meeting days, because then I just focus on the things that I really need. Like, I need time, and I need to sit there and like have big tables that I can just, spread stuff around on, or like, I really need to solve this big problem or whatever. And so, but I've never done it with my kids around. And, you know, I work with a lot of great people who work from home. And, you know, like working from home on the day that your kid is sick is not the same. I mean, you're kind of half working and half not. But, you know, when I've had people on my team who, you know, asked to work from home, like one of the questions or, you know, and they said, oh, I'll have my kid. Nope, that's not, that's parenting and part-time working. And now that we're all in this situation where like, that's not an option, then, you know, it's okay. How do we make the best of this? And I've found, at least with my company, that the expectation, like they've been fantastic about you're going to do the best you can. And there are lots of parents. And whereas before it might've been an expectation that you are working the same as if you were in the office with, you know, no family distractions or whatever else, like there is a lot of new conversation about this and a lot of openness to it. So I hope that's a nice future facing change.
So Elizabeth, I was just going to say, I like that you kind of showed your mapping tool and some different things that we can do to map our day, because I am an amazing list maker, but I won't say that I map. So I have a list of things that I'm going to mark off just as fast as I can. So it's like full steam ahead from like the beginning of the day straight through. And that's what I've kind of been doing for the first 3 weeks that we've been working this way.
Right.
And I am exhausted by the end of the day. It's like, I didn't even know I could like do that much, but yet I feel like I'm still not getting everything done.
Right.
But I think it's just that I'm not mapping it out. And so this past Friday, I mapped everything out on my list, and I reserved 2 hours that I did kind of some independent learning, and then like I found something just like creative to work on, and my attitude was so much better. I think I made some friends after that, because prior to that, people were like, man, she's a machine. So I really like that you said that. And I was just going to see, normally I travel and I work from home maybe 1 day a week. The rest of the time I'm out. So do you find sometimes that you're more tired working from home than when you're out and about?
Not anymore. Because I think where I need to grow is that when I travel, I'm typically on campuses, and so I'm there and I meet with instructors all day long, and I do all that kind of stuff. And then I basically go back to the hotel and I put in, like, I do all the stuff that I would have done from the office. And so I'm really bad at setting those boundaries of like, okay, no, this is a travel week for me and I'm doing these other important job functions. And so like, how can I prioritize that other time? Whereas working from home, I think I've been doing for so long, that I think my struggle is actually the flip of yours. But I think if I don't map, what I end up doing is the stuff that I'm most interested in, and a lot of like the little 5 and 10 minute tasks, because I can check them off the list, and I love checking things off the list. And so then all of a sudden it's the end of the day, and I really haven't made any progress on some of the bigger tasks that I like, the bigger, meatier things that are maybe more important.
Yes.
And so that's been my experience and my problem. There's an app called Focuster. And basically it plugs into I used it for a while, and for various reasons decided it wasn't for me, but it actually plugs into your calendar, like your Google Calendar or whatever. And you go in and you set up a task list and how long you think things are going to take, and you prioritize or whatever. And it actually plops them onto your calendar, like onto your Google Calendar. So that when you look at your calendar, you can see like, oh, at this time I'm supposed to be doing this. And it sends you like reminders and stuff too. I didn't like that. It didn't work well for me because I do move around quite a bit, and like I do put out a lot of fires and stuff like that. So I know to kind of, okay, well, this is my plan A for when I'm going to do this, but I'm also okay with plan B. And I felt like sometimes it made plan B seem like, when it's like, no, I'm still going to get it done. I'm still going to get it done today, just, whatever. But for a lot of people, I think Focuster is helpful. If you would rather do it online.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hi, I have my camera off because I am have my little one eating food right now, my 1-month-old baby. So I have a question about how you talk to your, because we have a 3-year-old. How do you talk to your 3-year-old about, hey Ellie, about like setting the boundaries? Like, I have to work right now, and what that looks like. And how do you communicate that? Have you heard of any best practices in communicating, I can't pay attention to you right now?
Right. So I keep that, like I said, I keep like a basket that has like the stuff of like, here's what to do. The easier thing for me is that my one, who is my 4-year-old, really looks up to Big Sister, and Big Sister is pretty good about having a schedule. So we do, she's actually pretty good about knowing that, like if I have headphones in, I'm in a meeting and I just talk about that, and she still comes in and I'll still, like say, oh, that's cool. And then she walks back out. But she, I think giving her a lot of time, I go to like family counseling, about once or twice a month, kind of depending on how the schedule falls. And this is a question that I ask is, how to not just have meltdowns every single day about this when it's like she wants the attention that she can't get. And so this is certainly outside of my area of expertise, but the advice that was given to me was, start the day with like 15 dedicated minutes of, I'm going to do whatever you want to do or whatever else. And like, make sure you refer to it as special time and that kind of thing. So that it's, cemented that this is not because you're less important. This is because we have things to do. My daughter also really likes to check things off a list, even though she can't read the list. So that's what we've been doing. I have gamified as many things as possible. This was a prop that I brought that I didn't show. So this is how we clean the house, because I don't want to spend the small amount of free time I now have cleaning up after everybody. And so it's basically, they roll a dice, and if they get an even number, it's downstairs or upstairs, an odd number is downstairs. And then they roll it again and it determines the room. And so like we've done just a lot of gamifying of like everything. So, I mean, that's like just a piece of paper that I drew on. So that has been helpful, turning kind of everything into a you're helping game.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
There's my 1-month-old.
That sweet baby.
Hi, baby Grace.
1-month-old today.
Wow. She holds her head up really well.
Pretty good. We forget to do tummy time. We'll do it every day.
There are other things going on.
One of the things that has fallen to the wayside. But we're working on it.
I think if that was...
Any other questions? Liz, this was phenomenal.
Cool.
Yeah, so good.
Very tactical, amazing. If you don't mind, when I send you the recording and the list, if you would send the slides to them as well.
Sure. Yep.
This is awesome.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, this is like, because of my nerding out on all things workplace efficiency, this is like actually something I like to talk about. So, I'm not saying I planned COVID, but no, not at all. I'm very much looking forward to when my kids go back to school.
Well, and thank you. And again, y'all, she volunteered this, like knowing that people were struggling and being part of the other happy hours. So Liz, you upped everyone's game because you came with a PowerPoint and you were so professional and it was perfect. So thank you. And I hope to see y'all on Friday for self-defense. And again, we'll get the recording and the slideshow out to everyone. And if you have questions, I'm just going to volunteer her. Feel free to reach out to her. She's so passionate about it.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
Hi, guys.
Your week. Okay.